For decades, I mean, millions of women have essentially been told that their hormones are just broken.
Yeah, just randomly malfunction.
Right, like their bodies simply forgot how to function,
Right.
and that the only fix is just slapping on a synthetic Band-Aid.
Which is just biologically false.
Exactly. But what if your hormones aren't randomly failing at all? What if they're actually doing exactly what your daily habits are instructing them to do?
That completely flips the narrative right there. I mean, the whole idea that hormones are just arbitrary.
That they just wake up on a Tuesday and decide to make your life difficult.
Right, it's completely wrong. They are messengers. So if the message they're carrying seems chaotic, well, it's almost always because the environment sending the message is chaotic.
And that is exactly the core mission of our deep dive today. For you listening, whether you're personally dealing with symptoms or, trying to optimize your health, or even if you're just insanely curious about human biology, we are moving way past the superficial approach.
We really are. We're getting into the actual mechanics.
Yeah. So we're looking at this fascinating, really extensive discussion from Gary Brecka's Ultimate Human Deep Dive. Specifically, this is episode 250.
And the entire focus there is on the natural balancing of female hormones.
Right. Mapping out the true environmental signals and biological signals that dictate hormone health.
And we are going to look at the underlying pathways: blood sugar, estrogen clearance, cortisol, cycle alignment.
Because the goal here is to demystify this so completely that by the end of this deep dive, you understand how your daily habits are acting as direct instructions to your endocrine system.
It's about taking the power back, really.
Totally. It's like, okay, think about driving down the highway and your check engine light comes on.
Yeah, that glowing orange icon.
Right. And that icon is just a symptom. In the context of your biology, that light is, your poor sleep or a sudden weight gain or terrible anxiety, maybe an irregular cycle.
Exactly.
Now, standard approaches to hormone health. Essentially, look at that light on the dashboard, decide it's really annoying, and just try to treat the symptom in isolation.
They literally try to reach behind the dashboard and unscrew the bulb.
Yes, you unscrew the bulb, and sure, the light goes away.
But the oil is still leaking.
Right. The engine is still misfiring.
Because the light was just a signal. It was telling you something under the hood needed attention. It was never the root problem.
So today, we are not unscrewing the bulb. We are popping the hood, getting our hands dirty, and fixing the actual engine by addressing the signals.
But to do that, we really have to start with how we even know what those signals are in the first place.
Right. How do we measure them?
And this is a massive paradigm shift in the source material. It starts by acknowledging a really deep flaw in how standard medicine measures hormones.
Let's get into that.
Right.
Because a typical hormone panel, you go to a clinic, they draw your blood, and they hand you a lab report.
Right. And that test, it's giving you a single snapshot in time.
Just one tiny moment.
Exactly. It tells you what your hormone levels look like at the exact millisecond that needle was in your arm.
So wait, if I'm getting blood drawn at 9:00 a.m. on a Tuesday, I'm literally only seeing the 9:00 a.m. Tuesday version of my biology.
That is exactly what you're seeing. And that static number fits very neatly into an established reference range, right?
Right, the little normal versus abnormal columns on the printout.
Yeah. But human biology isn't static. A snapshot doesn't tell you how those hormones are actually being used by your body throughout the entire day.
It just shows their presence.
Right. It doesn't show how they're being metabolized at a cellular level. And crucially, it doesn't tell you how they're being cleared out of your system once they've actually done their job.
Okay, so the source introduces a totally different approach to testing here, which is really fascinating. The DUTCH test. DUTCH.
The dried urine test for comprehensive hormones.
And the fundamental difference here is time, right? The dimension of time.
Absolutely. Because the DUTCH test is not a single blood draw. It actually takes a full 24 hours to complete.
Wow.
Yeah, you're collecting urine samples over the course of an entire day and night.
So because of that duration, and because it's looking at urine rather than just blood, the results are just exponentially more comprehensive.
They really are. I mean, it shows the metabolites.
Let's dig into that word, metabolites.
Oh, yeah.
What does that 24-hour window actually reveal?
Well, for example, your body makes estrogen, right? But then it has to break it down.
Okay.
The DUTCH test shows whether your body is breaking it down into a protective pathway, like, say, 2-hydroxyestrone.
Which is a good one.
Right. Or if it's going down a more proliferative, potentially dangerous pathway, like 16-hydroxyestrone.
And that's the one associated with, estrogen-dominant conditions.
Exactly. Higher risks of some serious issues. And the test also tracks how your cortisol, your primary stress hormone, how that actually moves across the entire arc of your day.
The cortisol awakening response.
Yes. It even shows the real-time interactions between your liver's detox pathways and your progesterone levels.
So it's kind of like the difference between looking at a photograph of a race car versus watching a full video of it taking a lap around the track.
That's a perfect analogy.
I mean, the blood test shows you, okay, the car exists and it's red.
Right.
But the DUTCH test shows you how the driver is handling the corners, how the brakes are functioning, what the engine actually sounds like when it's under pressure.
It reveals the signals and the movement.
But wait, let me push back on this a bit. If mapping these biological rhythms is so clearly superior, and it really sounds like it is, why is the medical world so completely obsessed with that static number on a lab report?
Right.
Like, why aren't doctors just ordering these 24-hour movies for everyone? Is it really just because snapshots are easier to read?
It's largely about the industrialization of medicine, honestly.
Efficiency over depth.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A single static number is highly efficient for a high-volume medical system. If the number is outside that reference range we talked about, an algorithm or a standardized protocol just immediately suggests a prescription to push it back in.
So low number,
Yeah.
add a pill. High number, suppress it.
Right. But reviewing a 24-hour metabolic pathway requires a deep understanding of functional endocrinology. And it takes time.
Time that doctors just don't have.
Unfortunately, no. A standard 15-minute clinical consultation simply doesn't allow for that level of analysis.
Wow.
But when you view hormones as a continuous metabolic movie, the whole goal shifts. It's no longer about just adding more hormones to fix a low number.
The goal becomes fixing the environment.
Exactly. Fixing the environment that's causing the poor metabolism in the first place.
So it's the ultimate diagnostic tool to figure out which part of the engine is actually triggering the check engine light.
Precisely. It confirms which specific signals need support before any actual reset can begin.
Okay, so let's get into the engine itself. Let's start taking action on this. And this brings us to what might be the most surprising part of the entire deep dive, honestly.
Oh, the blood sugar piece.
Yes, because when people want to fix reproductive hormones, they usually want to jump straight to like estrogen creams or progesterone or some exotic herbal supplement.
Right, but you cannot build a house on a swamp.
I love that phrasing.
It's true. Before you can even think about optimizing reproductive hormones, you absolutely must stabilize your blood sugar.
Blood sugar, like the way our bodies process the bagel we eat for breakfast, is the absolute foundation of female hormone balance.
It is the foundation. Estrogen and insulin are intimately connected within the endocrine system. They work hand in hand to maintain metabolic homeostasis.
So how does that work mechanically?
Well, when your estrogen signaling is healthy and functioning properly, your body actually uses glucose more efficiently. Your insulin sensitivity improves.
Meaning your cells are eagerly opening their doors to take in energy from the blood.
Yes. And when that happens smoothly, your overall metabolic stress just decreases.
But let's look at what happens when it's not smooth, when blood sugar is unstable. Because the source describes this massive cascade of chaos that begins when you're spiking and crashing.
It really is chaos. Let's trace it biologically. Say you eat a highly refined carbohydrate meal.
Like a pastry and sweetened coffee.
Exactly. Just straight carbs and sugar without any protein or fat. Your blood sugar rockets up.
Spike.
Right. And in response, your pancreas pumps out a massive wave of insulin to clear that sugar, but it overcompensates.
Because it panics.
Yeah, it panics. And so your blood sugar crashes hard, maybe an hour or two later.
And the body views a rapid drop in available energy as a literal physiological emergency, right?
Right.
Because your brain needs glucose to survive.
Yes. To rescue you from this perceived starvation event, your adrenal glands flood your system with cortisol.
The stress hormone.
Right. Cortisol is fantastic at rapidly pulling stored sugar back into the bloodstream from your liver and muscles, basically to save your life.
Okay, but what does that have to do with reproductive hormones?
Here is the critical mechanism. When cortisol rises sharply and frequently due to these daily blood sugar instability crashes, your body makes a biological calculation.
It shifts resources.
Exactly. It diverts resources away from reproductive hormone production.
There's a term for this in the functional space, right? Pregnenolone steal.
Yes, it's often referred to that way. The idea is that the precursor hormones that would have normally gone toward making progesterone are shunted over to make more cortisol instead.
Because cortisol is necessary for immediate survival.
Right. Making a baby, or even just preparing the body for potential reproduction through a normal menstrual cycle, it takes an immense amount of metabolic energy.
It's a luxury.
A total luxury. If your body thinks it's starving or in a state of constant stress due to these blood sugar crashes, reproduction is the absolute first luxury it crosses off the list. Progesterone just plummets.
It makes total sense.
Yeah.
Think of your body as a massive city, and your blood sugar is the city's energy grid.
I like this.
Yeah. So if that power grid is incredibly volatile, if you have massive power surges followed by rolling blackouts happening like multiple times a day, the city government has to make some really hard choices.
They have to triage.
Exactly. When the blackout hits, they're going to immediately shut down power to the non-essential services. They turn off the lights at the art museums, the recreation centers, the botanical gardens.
Right, because they absolutely have to keep the power running to the hospitals and the emergency services.
Exactly. The hospitals are your brain and your heart. That's pure survival. The botanical gardens, that's your reproductive system. That's your progesterone.
Yep.
If the energy grid is constantly crashing, the city is not going to fund the botanical gardens.
That mechanism perfectly explains why unstable blood sugar is directly linked to severe PMS, high anxiety, cycle irregularity, and chronic fatigue.
You're trying to force the botanical garden to bloom while the city is actively shutting off its power.
You really have to stabilize the energy grid first.
Okay, so for the listener, how do we actually fix the grid? The source outlines 3 specific, actionable daily interventions. Number 1, eat protein within the first hour of waking up.
This is huge. When you wake up, your body is naturally in a somewhat fasted, slightly stressed state anyway.
Right.
Cortisol naturally peaks in the morning. That's the awakening response we mentioned earlier, just to get you out of bed.
So if the first thing you put into your body is straight sugar or simple carbohydrates,
You send that glucose on a roller coaster, followed by an immediate crash.
but by getting, say, 30 grams of protein in right away.
You're laying down a slow-burning anchor. It blunts the glucose spike and sets a really stable tone for the entire day's insulin curve.
Okay, intervention number 2. Whenever you do eat carbohydrates, always pair them with protein and healthy fats.
This is about altering the physical mechanics of digestion.
Right, slowing things down.
Exactly. Carbohydrates alone are broken down very quickly in the stomach and the small intestine, so they hit the bloodstream all at once. But when you wrap those carbohydrates in protein and fat, it slows gastric emptying.
It's like putting traffic lights on a highway on-ramp.
Yes. The glucose enters the bloodstream slowly and steadily. You avoid the spike, and you avoid that subsequent cortisol-triggering crash.
Love that. Okay, intervention number 3. Prioritize minerals. Specifically, the source mentions magnesium and electrolytes. Why is that?
Because they're crucial for supporting insulin signaling at the cellular level.
Break that down for us.
Okay, let's look at the insulin receptor itself. Think of insulin as a key, and the cell door has a lock.
Got it.
Even if you have plenty of insulin floating around in your blood, if you are deficient in key intracellular minerals like magnesium, the lock basically gets sticky.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. The signaling pathway inside the cell, the actual cascade that tells the cell to open up and take in the glucose, that is entirely magnesium dependent.
So by prioritizing these minerals, you ensure that when your body needs to clear glucose from the blood, the mechanism actually works.
Exactly. The key turns the lock.
For everyone listening, I know the world of health optimization can just feel like a total tidal wave of information overload.
It really can.
But what we're talking about here are 3 fundamental rules to stop the panic signals. Protein in the first hour, pair your carbs, get your minerals. It is the ultimate simplified cheat code.
If you want to start hormone repair, you really have to start with breakfast. Stabilize the blood sugar, and as the source points out, estrogen balance will naturally begin to follow suit.
Okay, so we've stabilized the blood sugar to stop the panic signals. We've fixed the fuel supply. But what about the hormones that are already circulating in the body?
Right, the ones already doing their job.
Yeah. What happens to the estrogen that was dumped into the system before we fixed the food? Where does it go? Because hormones don't just magically evaporate.
No, they don't. They require an exit strategy.
An exit strategy.
The body has to process them, convert them into a different form, and physically eliminate them. This is the estrogen clearance protocol.
The source breaks this down into incredibly specific metabolic pathways. It's fascinating. First, the estrogen goes to the liver, and then subsequently down to the gut.
Right. The liver is basically the body's primary chemical processing plant. And estrogen is a fat-soluble hormone. So to get it out of the body, the liver actually has to make it water-soluble.
How does it do that?
It does it in two distinct phases. Phase 1 is kind of like a sorting facility where specific enzymes, cytochrome P450 enzymes, attach an oxygen molecule to the estrogen to make it reactive.
But wait, the source says that reactive intermediate is actually highly toxic, right?
Yes, it's actually more toxic than the original estrogen.
Wow.
So phase 2 has to happen immediately. Phase 2 is conjugation. The liver attaches a molecular seatbelt, like a methyl group or a sulfate, to this toxic intermediate.
The seatbelt.
Yeah, it neutralizes it and makes water soluble so it can be safely excreted into the bile and then sent down into the gut.
But the source extensively discusses the massive danger of what happens when this process is slow or impaired. The danger of recycling estrogen.
This is the hidden trap for so many women. It really is.
Because if the liver is sluggish,
Right. If it doesn't attach that seatbelt efficiently, or more commonly, if the gut isn't moving things along properly, that packaged estrogen doesn't actually leave the body. It just sits in the intestines.
then what happens?
Well, there are specific bacteria in your gut microbiome. Sometimes this is referred to as the estrobolome, and they produce an enzyme called beta-glucuronidase.
Beta-glucuronidase. What exactly does that do?
It acts like a pair of biological scissors. Oh, no.
Yeah. If the estrogen sits in the gut for too long, this enzyme snips the seatbelt right off. The estrogen becomes unbound, it's reabsorbed through the intestinal wall, and it's recycled directly back into your bloodstream.
So you are essentially getting a double dose of your own hormones simply because your digestion is slow.
Exactly. And when that happens, the symptoms are severe. We are talking about debilitating breast tenderness, really heavy, painful bloating, massive mood swings, and highly irregular periods.
And the crucial distinction in the source material is that these symptoms are occurring not necessarily because your ovaries are overproducing estrogen.
Right.
It's because the estrogen you already used is lingering in the system way longer than it should.
It's the difference between a leaky faucet and a clogged drain.
That's a great way to look at it. Standard medicine often looks at high circulating estrogen on a blood test and just assumes the faucet is running too fast.
So they might prescribe something to suppress production.
But in reality, for so many women, the production is perfectly normal. The drain is just clogged. You have to unclog the drain. Our bodies are essentially acting as hoarders of our own hormones.
So how do we clear it out? The source mentions fiber a lot here. How does fiber physically act as the trash bag in this gut clearance process?
Well, when the liver sends the processed estrogen into the gut via the bile, it needs something to physically bind to, just to ensure it gets carried all the way out of the digestive tract.
And dietary fiber is that physical binder.
Exactly. It grabs hold of those estrogen metabolites and acts as the transport vehicle. It literally shields them from that beta-glucuronidase enzyme and ensures they're actually excreted in your bowel movements.
So if you lack fiber, the estrogen just sits there waiting to be unpackaged and recycled.
Yep, just waiting for the scissors.
Okay, so the source lists 4 non-negotiable dietary and lifestyle interventions to support these specific clearance pathways. First up, eating cruciferous vegetables on a daily basis.
Broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, kale. These are non-negotiable because they contain specific phytochemicals, notably one called dimethylmethane and sulforaphane.
And what do those do?
They actively upregulate those phase 1 and phase 2 liver enzymes we just talked about. They literally make the liver's processing plant run faster and much more efficiently.
So they're speeding up the seatbelt attachment.
Precisely.
Okay, second is getting enough of that fiber to act as the trash bag in the gut, which we covered. Third is adding bitter foods to your diet. Bitter greens, arugula, dandelion root. Why bitter foods specifically?
Bitters are incredibly important because they stimulate receptors on the tongue that actually send a vagal nerve signal down to the liver and gallbladder to release bile.
And bile is what carries the toxins out.
Right. Bile is the actual fluid that carries the packaged toxins and metabolized hormones from the liver into the gut in the first place. If your bile flow is sluggish, the toxins just back up into the liver.
So bitters get the conveyor belt moving.
They do. They trigger the release.
And the fourth intervention, this is the unglamorous one, but the source absolutely insists it's the ultimate linchpin, supporting regular bowel movements.
It might not be polite dinner conversation, but it is the inescapable biological truth. The source has this really profound quote, "Elimination is hormone health."
Elimination is hormone health. Wow.
Yeah. If you are chronically constipated, you are chronically recycling hormones. The secret to female hormonal balance isn't always found in some specialized endocrine clinic. Very often, it's just found in the fundamental daily mechanics of human digestion.
That completely reframes the entire concept of digestion for me. It's not just about avoiding a stomachache. It's about actively taking out the hormonal trash so your body doesn't hoard it.
Exactly. Take out the trash.
Okay, so we've fixed the fuel supply by stabilizing blood sugar. We've fixed the exhaust system by ensuring proper estrogen clearance through the liver and gut. But what is controlling the entire system?
The engine's control center.
Right, the brain and the nervous system. We have to address cortisol and chronic stress.
We really do.
And I want to clarify something right away here, because I feel like the wellness industry has done a terrible job with this, and the source is very careful to correct it. Cortisol has gotten a terrible reputation. People talk about it like it's a literal poison.
Yeah, they do. But cortisol is not the enemy.
Right. Without cortisol, you would die.
Exactly. It mobilizes energy when you need to exercise. It helps you respond to acute danger. It regulates your immune system. The issue is never cortisol itself. The actual enemy is chronic cortisol.
Chronic, meaning it never turns off.
Right. It's when the stress stays elevated continuously without ever returning to a baseline level.
We touched on this briefly during the blood sugar segment with the pregnenolone steal, but the source goes much deeper into the biological shift that occurs under chronic stress. It's this epic battle between survival mode and reproduction mode.
And it really is a battle. When you're under chronic stress, whether that's from a toxic work environment or emotional trauma, maybe overtraining at the gym or just terrible sleep, your body shifts permanently into survival mode.
And the source points to the actual neurological mechanisms of how this happens. It physically interrupts the communication line between the brain and the ovaries.
It alters hypothalamic signaling.
Let's unpack that.
Sure. So the hypothalamus is the part of your brain that acts as the master conductor for your entire endocrine system. It constantly reads the environment.
Okay.
When it senses safety, it sends signals down to the pituitary gland, which then sends luteinizing hormone and follicle-stimulating hormone down to the ovaries, telling them to produce estrogen and progesterone.
And we call this the HPA axis, or in this case, the HPO axis, right? The hypothalamic pituitary ovarian axis.
Exactly. But when chronic cortisol is just flooding the system,
What happens?
the hypothalamus essentially puts down the conductor's baton. It downregulates all those signals. The brain literally stops sending the instruction, so the reproductive hormones down in the ovaries don't even stand a chance.
They simply aren't given the command to produce.
Right. They go offline.
It goes right back to that wartime president analogy we discussed earlier.
It fits perfectly.
Right. If a country's under attack, if it is actively at war, the president isn't going to spend the national budget on building new parks or upgrading the local theater. Every single resource, all the steel, all the fuel, all the money, it all goes to the military.
It goes to the munitions factories. Survival.
Exactly. A body under chronic stress is a body at war. It shuts down the reproductive system because it has to divert all its resources to surviving the perceived threat.
And the really insidious part of modern life is that a dysregulated nervous system keeps that cortisol high even after the immediate stressor is gone.
That is the modern human dilemma, isn't it?
It is. I mean, an animal in the wild experiences massive stress when it's chased by a predator, massive cortisol spike. But once the chase is over and the animal survives, its nervous system physically resets.
It literally shakes it off and goes back to grazing.
Exactly. Humans, on the other hand, have this unique cognitive ability to trigger that exact same biological stress response just by thinking about an email.
Or stressing about a mortgage payment.
Or sitting in gridlock traffic. We get stuck in the sympathetic state, the fight or flight state.
So how do we actually get out of it? Because the source states unequivocally that hormone balance only happens in a state of safety, the parasympathetic state.
Rest and digest.
Right. You have to proactively tell your brain that the body is safe. You have to send the all-clear signal to the wartime president.
And the beauty of the source material here is that it outlines 4 specific at-home therapies to regulate the nervous system, and they are completely 100% free.
Let's break them down. Number 1, morning sunlight.
Getting natural sunlight in your eyes within the first hour of waking up is arguably one of the most powerful biological signals you can send to your brain.
It anchors your circadian rhythm.
Why, yes. When full-spectrum light hits the melanopsin receptors in your eyes, it signals the brain's central clock, the suprachiasmatic nucleus, that it is daytime.
And what does that actually do to the hormones?
It naturally blunts and regulates those early morning cortisol peaks, and it actually sets a timer for melatonin production later that night. You are literally syncing your internal clock with the rotation of the earth.
That is so cool. Okay, number 2, slow nasal breathing.
This is a mechanical override for your nervous system.
Mechanical override.
Yeah. When you breathe quickly and shallowly through your mouth, you're physically signaling panic to your brain. But when you consciously slow your breathing down, engage your diaphragm, and breathe deeply through your nose,
You're changing the signal.
you're mechanically stimulating the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve wanders from your brainstem down through your heart and digestive organs. Stimulating it manually forces the body to shift out of the sympathetic fight or flight state and directly into the parasympathetic rest and digest state.
It's like having a physical lever you can pull to just turn off the alarm system.
It really is.
Okay, number 3, reducing stimulants. And specifically, the source calls out avoiding caffeine on an empty stomach.
This is a big one for a lot of people. Caffeine operates by blocking adenosine, which is the chemical that makes you feel sleepy.
Right.
But it also acts as a massive stressor on the adrenal system. It actively stimulates cortisol and adrenaline release.
So if you drink a large black coffee on an empty stomach first thing in the morning.
While your cortisol is already naturally peaking to wake you up,
Oh, wow.
you are throwing gasoline on a biological fire. It drives the nervous system into total overdrive, and that almost always leads to that mid-afternoon crash and huge anxiety spike.
So simple, but so impactful. Just eat first.
Yeah.
Okay, and number 4, respecting rest in the second half of your cycle. This is a massive point, actually, because it transitions us from the micro habits of our day into the macro rhythm of our entire month.
It is arguably the most powerful and yet the most culturally ignored hormone therapy available to us today.
Let's really explore that macro rhythm, because the source makes this incredibly clear. Women are not regulated by a single static 24-hour clock.
No, they aren't.
And yet, we live in a world that operates exactly that way.
Completely. Standard fitness advice, productivity hacks, corporate schedules, the entire structure of the modern work week, they are all built around a rigid 24-hour cycle.
You wake up, you exert maximum energy, you sleep, and you are expected to repeat the exact same output with the exact same intensity the very next day.
Right. And that is the male biological clock, which is driven by a daily 24-hour cycle of testosterone production.
But female physiology follows a monthly rhythm, an infradian rhythm.
Yes, it is driven by massive systemic fluctuations in estrogen and progesterone across 4 distinct phases.
The follicular phase, the ovulatory phase, the luteal phase, and the menstrual phase.
And we really have to understand that these shifts are not just, slight mood fluctuations. They are deeply structurally physiological. They influence everything.
Everything, like your baseline energy levels.
Your core body temperature, your immune system function, your capacity to recover from stress, and your sensitivity to fatigue. It all changes fundamentally depending on where you are in that 28 to 30-day cycle.
The source drops a fascinating physiological fact here that I think completely changes the way we should look at exercise. There are actual hormone receptors in your muscle tissue and your ligaments.
Yes, there are. This is why the exact same workout, let's say a high-intensity interval training session or like a heavy deadlift routine, will feel and physically be completely different on day 10 of your cycle versus day 25.
So it's not in your head. If a workout feels impossibly hard one week when it was easy the last, it is literally in your muscle tissue.
Exactly. Let's break it down. During the follicular and ovulatory phases, roughly the first half of the cycle, estrogen is rising.
And estrogen is an anabolic hormone, right?
Right. It helps build tissue. During this phase, your body is incredibly resilient. Your muscles can handle intense stress, your ligaments are super stable, your recovery capacity is high, and you are biologically primed to push hard.
But then ovulation happens when we move into the luteal phase.
And progesterone takes over. Progesterone is generally catabolic. It breaks things down. Your core body temperature actually rises. Your stress resilience drops. Your immune system slightly suppresses to ensure your body wouldn't reject a fertilized egg.
So during this phase, those same high-intensity workouts,
They suddenly become a massive source of systemic inflammation.
which leads to the emerging research discussed in the source regarding aligning fitness and life. The data suggests that we should be concentrating our higher intensity training and even our most demanding high-stress tasks during the follicular and ovulatory phases.
Yes. Ride that wave of resilience.
And then actively backing off during the luteal and menstrual phases, focusing on mobility, walking, yoga, active recovery.
Exactly.
But hold on, let me play devil's advocate here. If mapping these biological rhythms is so clearly backed by physiological science, why is the entire fitness industry still pushing the never miss a Monday, 24-hour grind mentality? Like, are they just ignoring the data?
Well, they're operating on legacy data that was primarily derived from studying male athletes.
Ah, of course.
The consistency at all costs culture just assumes that the underlying machinery is identical every single day. But pushing uniformly across the entire month doesn't make a female body stronger. It causes unnecessary physiological strain.
Because it drives up that chronic cortisol we just talked about.
Exactly, which then steals the pregnenolone, which drops the progesterone, which leads to the irregular cycles.
It's all connected.
It is. The research is increasingly clear. When you align your training, your nutrition, and your expectations with these biological patterns, you yield the exact same, if not better, beneficial outcomes in strength and fitness, but with far less damage to the endocrine system.
You stop fighting the current and start swimming with it. Respecting this monthly cycle isn't a sign of weakness, and it isn't an excuse to slack off. It's a profound biological hack.
It really is. It allows the body's hormones to efficiently recalibrate entirely on their own. When you remove the friction, the machine runs the way it was designed to run.
It is the ultimate application of working smarter, not harder, on a cellular level. Okay, so let's look at the big picture here. We have covered a tremendous amount of ground.
We really have.
I mean, we are talking about mapping out a 24-hour DUTCH test. We are tracking fiber intake and cruciferous vegetables for gut health and liver detox. We are consciously seeking out morning sunlight to anchor our circadian rhythms.
We are actively engaging our diaphragms to stimulate the vagus nerve and lower cortisol.
Right. We're managing our blood sugar by eating 30 grams of protein before our coffee. And we're timing our physical exertion to 4 different fluctuating cycle phases across an entire month.
It's an immense amount of data to process.
It's an overwhelming amount of variables, which really forces the transition to the final major piece of the source material, integration and technology.
Right, because having the knowledge is one thing, application is another.
Exactly. How does a normal person, someone with a job and kids and a busy life, actually integrate this complex bioinformatics into their daily routine without totally burning out?
Knowledge without application is just trivia. You have to have a systematic way to implement it.
And the source outlines Gary Brecka's specific protocol for this. He has a VIP community, which includes an extensive 10-month course called Becoming the Ultimate Human.
And 10 months is a highly realistic timeline. You cannot rewire a lifetime of metabolic dysfunction, sluggish liver pathways, and chronic nervous system dysregulation in a weekend retreat.
Right, it takes time. And within this protocol, they use specific video workbooks and habit trackers. They're taking these complex biological sciences, the estrogen clearance pathways, the HPA axis regulation, and boiling them down into simple check-the-box daily routines until they become automatic.
Building the habits slowly.
The most fascinating part of this integration, the thing that really shifts this from just a standard health program into the future of medicine, is the technological leap they're making, the Ask Gary Anything AI integration.
Oh, this is a profound look at the future of personalized functional medicine.
Let's deeply explore this because the implications are wild. The source describes an artificial intelligence version of Gary Brecka, but what makes it unique is that it operates within a closed system.
Yes, that is key.
It's a large language model, but it's not an open AI that is just crawling the public web, scraping random health blogs, Reddit forums, and contradictory articles for answers.
That closed system aspect is critical when you're dealing with medical and biological data. It means the information the AI provides is strictly confined to the verified protocols, peer-reviewed research, and specific clinical expertise programmed into it by the creator.
So it filters out the noise.
It effectively eliminates the hallucinations or wildly contradictory advice you usually get from a standard internet search engine.
And it acts as a personalized health oracle. The source explains that users can actually feed this specific AI their own personal, highly complex data.
Right, you can upload your raw blood lab results.
You can upload your genetic tests to see if you have like an MTHFR gene mutation affecting your methylation. You can upload your DUTCH test results.
And then you can ask it highly specific questions about your supplementation or your hormonal symptoms in real time.
And the computing power synthesizes all of those massive complex data points instantly. It cross-references your specific genetic predispositions with your current metabolic blood markers and the protocols we've discussed, and it provides a personalized, actionable response.
As the source says, it responds as if you are sitting directly in front of the expert clinician. It combines genotyping, what your DNA says, with phenotyping, what your current environment is actually doing to you.
They supplement this with monthly, live, real-time Q&As to bridge the gap between the artificial intelligence and actual human interaction. But I have to point out the incredible, almost poetic contrast here.
The irony of it.
Yes. I mean, look at what we are fundamentally advocating for in this deep dive.
Yeah.
We're talking about ancient evolutionary biological mechanisms.
Right. Go outside, look at the sun.
Exactly. We're telling people to go outside and look at the morning sunlight. We're telling them to eat bitter roots and leaves to stimulate bile. We're telling them to breathe slowly through their noses like a sleeping animal and to honor the natural rhythm of the moon and their menstrual cycle.
Deeply primal ancestral behaviors.
Completely primal. And yet the only way we are successfully managing to relearn and track those primal behaviors is by uploading our sequenced genetic code and comprehensive metabolic panels into a closed-loop, large language model artificial intelligence system.
It's literally caveman biology managed by high-level science fiction.
It really is.
It is a paradox, but it is a necessary one for our time. We are living in a modern world that is completely misaligned with our primal biology. The technology, the AI, the advanced 24-hour urine testing is the bridge that helps us navigate through the modern noise back to our natural balanced state.
I think we are looking at the democratization of functional medicine. Right now, to get this level of personalized analysis, to have an endocrinologist sit down, cross-reference your genetics with your blood work, map your cycle, and design a lifestyle protocol, it costs thousands of dollars out of pocket.
And it requires access to highly specialized, waitlisted clinics.
Exactly. But by leveraging closed system AI, you are taking overwhelming medical data and synthesizing it instantly. It allows the individual patient to actually advocate for themselves.
It gives them the exact roadmap to implement these natural protocols without needing a PhD in biochemistry to understand their own body.
It puts the power and the comprehension firmly back in the hands of the individual.
Which is where it belongs.
Which brings us perfectly to the ultimate summary of everything we've covered in this deep dive. Let's recap the core philosophy here. The entire protocol revolves around a single, powerful premise.
Yeah.
Your body wants to be in balance.
It is always fighting for homeostasis. It is incredibly intelligent.
Always. When you remove the blockers, when you stop the unstable blood sugar crashes that trigger cortisol, when you clear out the lingering recycled estrogen from your gut, when you regulate your nervous system to send safety signals to your brain, and when you stop ignoring your monthly biological rhythms.
The magic happens.
Yes. When you remove the friction and support the signals, your body's hormones adjust and recalibrate completely on their own. As the source says, that's just science.
You don't have to micromanage the hormones. You don't have to force them into submission with synthetic patches and pills as a first resort. You just have to give the body the right environment, and the machinery will do the work it evolved to do.
So we have a challenge for you, the listener, straight from the source material. A 30-day challenge. For the next month, you don't need an AI, and you don't need a massive budget.
No, you don't.
We challenge you to simply try implementing the baseline protocols we discussed today. Start with breakfast. Get 30 grams of protein in within the first hour of waking up to set the blood sugar foundation.
Prioritize your fiber intake and your cruciferous vegetables. Give your gut the physical tools it needs to bind and clear out that metabolized estrogen.
And practice the daily stress reduction techniques. Get the morning sunlight in your eyes. Slow down your breathing to stimulate the vagus nerve.
And delay the caffeine until you have food in your stomach.
Do those things for 30 days and just pay attention. Pay attention to how your body feels. Pay attention to your energy levels, your sleep depth, the regularity of your cycle. Watch what happens when you stop fighting your biology.
You will be amazed.
But as we wrap up, I want to leave you with a final provocative thought to mull over. Something that builds on everything we've talked about today regarding the environment we live in.
Okay.
Think about the baseline interventions we've discussed. Stabilizing blood sugar with whole foods, avoiding artificial morning stimulants, taking time to literally just breathe properly, resting when your body naturally asks for rest during a monthly cycle. The base, right? If these things are the absolute non-negotiable baselines for a fundamental hormonal health, is it possible that the typical structure of modern life, The 9 to 5 grind, the constant exposure to artificial blue light, the highly processed convenience food, the expectation of uniform, relentless daily output is fundamentally hostile to human biology.
That is a profound question. If the default state of modern society makes us biologically sick.
Exactly. And if so, then deciding to prioritize your sleep, deciding to eat for blood sugar stability instead of convenience, deciding to consciously rest during your luteal phase instead of pushing for maximum productivity, is taking control of your hormones actually the ultimate act of rebellion?
I think it just might be. It is refusing to let a broken environment dictate your internal biology.
Keep questioning the systems around you. Keep learning about the incredible, complex machinery inside you. And trust the innate intelligence of your own body. Because the next time you feel off, the next time you're tired or anxious or your cycle is irregular, remember, your body isn't randomly breaking down. It's just a check engine light. Open the hood, look at the signals, and give the engine what it actually needs.